Welcome, welcome everyone to Sprinkles Parents webinar about calmer parents, calmer kids, and trauma-informed parenting with our amazing guest, Annie Wright from Evergreen Counseling. So grateful to have her here. For those who aren't familiar, if this is your first Sprinkles Parents event, we provide education, activities, and resources and community to parents like us to help all of our families thrive. As being a parent is really stressful. Annie and I were talking about how there's no right way to do for parenting. There's no silver bullet. It's not, it can't be easy, and like everything is just so challenging. And how do we make it more calm so it's not impacting our physical, emotional, our careers, and everything else? And so I'm just super grateful for everyone to be here today. We will send this recording after. I'm going to be taking questions at the end, everyone. If you could please put your questions in the chat, we'll tackle them at the end. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Annie.
Thank you, Brooke. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be able to present this really important topic. So first of all, who am I? My name is Annie Wright. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, specifically a trauma clinician. And I founded a boutique trauma-informed therapy center here in downtown Berkeley. I actually launched it when my daughter was 3 months old, and it and her are almost 5 years old now. I have a team of 18 clinicians and 4 administrative players who work with me at the center. I still see a full caseload of clients myself. And when I'm not working, I am mom, of course, to my incredible, spicy little daughter, a Peloton fanatic, and a pretty avid international traveler. You can read more about me on my own personal website, and certainly all about my therapy center at evergreencounseling.com. And again, I'll just share a little bit more about who we are in the community. That is not what our current building necessarily looks like, though we are located in the historical Wells Fargo building. We're a team of 18 clinicians, and we have 5 offices and 2 suites. We see clients 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we have an incredible team of child play therapists, adolescent therapists, EMDR trauma therapists, couples counselors, family therapists. So my entire world is mental health and parenting. And so when Brooke and I connected, gosh, I think it was a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months ago, we really hit it off and thought it'd be a great idea for me to share some of the information I have about trauma-informed parenting with you all, with the hope that it would make daily life feel even a smidge easier. So here's what we're going to be talking about in today's presentation. We're going to be defining what trauma-informed parenting even is. We're going to be understanding the importance of co-regulation to help reduce and metabolize trauma. We're going to discuss what the window of tolerance is and why it's so important. We're going to understand the concepts of a healthy mind platter and self-regulation toolboxes, and I'll show you some examples. We're going to know what might get in the way of being able to create that healthy mind platter and self-regulation toolbox. And quite frankly, when it's time to seek additional help for you or your kiddos. I'm going to also be sharing what I hope are anxiety relieving parenting caveats. And then we're going to close with some time for Q&A at the end. So as Brooke mentioned, feel free to pop your questions into the chat. We're going to gather them. There's going to be so much content in today's presentation. So just pop your questions in as the questions come up, and we'll tackle them at the end. So let's get started, shall we? And the way I want to start this presentation is with what feels like the most important caveat of all time when I'm presenting to parents. Parenting is without a doubt the hardest job in the world. You cannot turn it off, no matter how bad your quote unquote workday was. Most of us live with a sense of worry that when we get dysregulated and we're at our wits' end, that we're ruining our kids. And most of us are tackling parenting in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, a time where we're trying to build financial security and develop into adulthood, not to mention heal from our own childhood trauma if that did happen. It's pretty relentless when you think about it. Okay, so as we get started here with this presentation and we talk about what the ideals look like, please just remember we're doing the hardest job in the world. Okay. So let's get started by talking about and defining what trauma-informed parenting actually is. So trauma-informed parenting, in my professional opinion, is simply a lens through which we parent, a lens that acknowledges what trauma is, how subjective it is, and how it can indeed impact little kids, even though we don't think something was traumatic ourselves as their parents. So trauma-informed parenting means being aware, but it also means being equipped to attempt to support ourselves as much as possible to remain in our window of tolerance and reduce us acting out on or in front of our children. And then having the skills to repair with them if we do act out, after we do maybe create a rupture. Trauma-informed parenting also means being equipped with skills to help our children psychologically and physically digest and metabolize any intense stressors they went through so it doesn't land in their body as trauma. So in my professional opinion, trauma-informed parenting is about being aware, and it's also about being equipped. My hope in today's presentation is to help you become more informed, certainly, and more equipped to parent in a trauma-informed way with at least one skill set I teach, and that's about how to stay better regulated. And then we can hopefully help our kids do the same. So let's begin by acknowledging that our own ability to self-regulate as parents directly correlates to trauma-informed parenting. What do I mean by this? Self-regulation is the ability to control your energy, feelings, ideas, and actions in a good way. It helps us deal with problems, and it's important for our well-being, relationships with others, and learning. To develop self-regulation, we need to be aware of ourselves, understand our emotions, handle all the things around us without stress or with minimal stress, get along with other people well, and stay focused. So again, why is our own self-regulation so important for parenting? Well, our own self-regulation or lack thereof literally shapes their brains. Why? Well, first, we have a type of a brain cell called mirror neurons, cells that mimic behavior and feelings they see in others. If we see a friend bump her head, our mirror neurons fire up and we win some sympathy. So when we get angry or yell during difficult moments with our kids, our child's mirror neurons rise up to meet ours. Second, when we have well-developed self-regulation abilities, we're able to stay calm when they can't, and we can model behavior such as staying calm, showing empathy, helping them become self-aware, and guiding them through sensory experiences and calming strategies to deal with their own big feelings, thereby modeling and teaching self-regulation. And finally, when we're self-regulated, we're able to repair with our children after our ruptures with them, moments when we lose our cool, flip our lid, or act in less than attuned, caring ways, because let's face it, literally all of us do. There's no such thing as a perfect parent, but it is this act of repair that helps them feel more securely attached and models functional relationship behavior. So no pressure, right? It literally shapes their brains. But again, remember, there's no such thing as a perfect parent, okay? So please bear that in mind as I'm talking about all of this. But let's go back to self-regulation. How do we know if we're self-regulated? We're inside our window of tolerance, and our psychology and physiology has the hallmarks of the window of tolerance. Let's talk about this a little bit more. Okay, so what is the window of tolerance? The window of tolerance is a term and a concept coined by the esteemed psychiatrist Dan Siegel, clinical professor of psychiatry at the UCLA School of Medicine and executive director of the Mindsight Institute. The window of tolerance describes the optimal emotional zone that our brains can exist in to best function and thrive in everyday life. On either side of the optimal zone, there are two other zones, the hyperarousal zone and the hypoarousal zone, each characterized by their own attributes. So what is the optimal zone characterized by? Groundedness, flexibility, openness, curiosity, presence, an ability to be emotionally regulated, and a capacity to tolerate life stressors. On the other hand, hyperarousal is an emotional state characterized by high energy, anger, panic, irritability, anxiety, hypervigilance, overwhelm, chaos, fight or flight, and startle response, to name but a few characteristics. Being in a hyperaroused state can cause us to react impulsively and with increased aggression or fear. This state often leads to reduced rational thinking and difficulty in processing information calmly. Additionally, when we're in a hyper-aroused state, we may find it challenging to focus on tasks, as our heightened alertness can make us easily distracted and overwhelmed. And honestly, full disclosure, parent to parent, this is where I'm most prone to going if I'm outside the optimal arousal zone. This is a landscape I know well. But let's talk about the other zone that you can land in. It's the hypoarousal zone. And this is a zone that's an emotional state characterized by shutting down, numbness, depressiveness, withdrawal, shame, flat affect, and disconnection. Being in this state typically involves a noticeable decrease in physiological and mental activity. Someone in this state may display slowed movements, reduced muscle tone, and a lack of responsiveness to their environment. Their heart rate and breathing may become slow and shallow, and they might have a vacant or distant expression. Mentally, individuals in a hypoaroused state may appear lethargic, disengaged, and have difficulty concentrating or staying alert. This state can be associated with fatigue, depression, or even disassociation from reality. So obviously, the ideal here is to stay in that optimal arousal zone and increase our window of tolerance, so to speak. But the million-dollar question, of course, is, well, how do we do this, right? How do we increase our window of tolerance? Look, for ourselves and our kids, this is ideally where we want to be, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that all of us at every single age, from the moment we're born to the moment we die, we eclipse our window of tolerance and find ourselves in non-ideal emotional regulation states. It's normal and it's natural. So my goal here on this presentation is not to suggest that we shouldn't eclipse our window of tolerance. I personally and professionally think that's unrealistic. Rather, the goal is to increase the window of tolerance and grow our capacity to rebound and be resilient, coming back to the window of tolerance quickly and effectively. So again, how do we increase the window of tolerance? In my personal and professional opinion, this is twofold. First, we provide ourselves with the foundational biopsychosocial elements that contribute to a healthy, regulated nervous system. And two, we work to cultivate and call upon a really wide toolbox of tools when we find ourselves outside the window of tolerance, which again is inevitable. So this slide, which I advanced to pretty quickly, but it's called the Healthy Mind Platter. It's derived from Dr. Dan Siegel's work, and the concept of the Healthy Mind Platter is really what I think is the first step in creating a greater window of tolerance, because it focuses on the psychological and physiological foundations that many of us would suspect lead to a healthy life. I don't think any of this will surprise you, but as Dr. Dan Siegel describes them, they are focus time, playtime, connecting time, physical time, time in, sleep time, and downtime. I skipped downtime. But let's break this down, okay? I'm going to show you some examples. I want you to see what this can look like. Focus time means engaging in challenges that foster new neural connections. For example, learning a musical instrument, right? Practicing a new language on Duolingo, playing chess or strategy games. Playtime is deriving pleasure from novel experiences to forge new neural connections in the brain. Learning a new skill or hobby, volunteering for a cause, taking up gardening. Connecting time, activating and reinforcing the brain's relational circuitry by connecting with others in the natural world. Arranging play dates, attending events in parks nearby you, exploring family-friendly urban nature experiences. Physical time, enhancing the brain function through physical activity and movement. Peloton bike rides, walks with a good friend, dancing in your kitchen to Spotify. Time in, fostering brain integration through self-reflection, journaling, mindfulness, deep breathing and solitude. Downtime, revitalizing the mind through pure leisure or relaxation. Daydreaming, listening to an audiobook while staring at the wall. I'm just standing in the shower and letting the hot water come down on you. And sleep time really needs no introduction. But listen, speaking as a working parent, I know firsthand how hard it is to have time even to shower some days, let alone carve out time for all of these things that contribute to a healthy mind platter. So again, please remember, this is the ideal and something we're aiming for, not necessarily what's realistic every single day in this stage of life, especially when we have young kiddos, okay? But again, we want to work towards incorporating as much of that as possible in our daily lives to increase our window of tolerance. So we're going to do just a quick little exercise right now. I provided some prompts to help you build your own healthy mind platter. Feel free to screenshot this or take a photo of this page with your phone to journal about later. Because what I'd really like you to start to do is to get curious about, which of those 7 things am I lacking? Like, what could I improve upon? What could I sort of, work on building on that platter that would help me sort of have a wider window of tolerance? So answer some of these questions. What does focus time personally and ideally look like for you? What does your adult version of playtime ideally look like for you? What does connecting time look like for you socially and with nature and spirit? What does your ideal physical time look like? What does time in mean for you, and how can you build in internal reflection time? What even small slivers of ideal downtime might be available to you regularly? And I'm going to say this last one, kind of laughing. How can you better protect your sleep time to consolidate learning and recovering more? And if any of you have a child under 1 on this presentation, I apologize for the irony of that last question. Okay, so the first stage in building a wider window of tolerance is creating a robust, healthy mind platter. Okay, so take these prompts, consider what that looks like for you. But now the second part of the work to help us widen our window of tolerance and increase our own self-regulation abilities is cultivating and calling upon a wide toolbox of tools when we find ourselves outside of our window of tolerance. This is how we practice resiliency and rebound when we find ourselves in hyper or hypo arousal zones. We do this work by developing practices, habits, tools, and internalized and externalized resources that help soothe, regulate, redirect, and ground ourselves. I focus really heavily in my work with my therapy clients to help them cultivate a wide, diverse, rich, and effective multi-sensory toolbox of resources they can use to practice resiliency when they're outside their windows of tolerance. And while detailing the breadth and specifics of all these tools is beyond the scope of the presentation, I'll share that these tools are both internal and external in nature, multisensory, and designed to support my clients when they're by themselves or when they're at work being watched by others, or even on a plane flight. So I also have my clients design different toolboxes for when they might be in hyperarousal versus hypoarousal. So what do I mean by this? Here's an example of a multi-sensory self-regulation toolbox I developed with somebody that they can do at home if they're hyper aroused, kind of going into that panic irritation state. These are just a few different tools designed to dispel the energy in their body, bring back some calming, some grounding, and this is specific to things that they actually enjoy. But you can see from the multi-sensory lens that we're engaging audio, we're engaging smell, touch with the ice cube, right? Sight, the photo, and box breathing would be the somatic tool there. And then I want to share another slide. Here are some tools for someone who's prone to hypoarousal. Again, all these tools in the toolbox are designed to get our brains back online and get us back into the window of tolerance. They're tools that strengthen our ability for self-regulation resiliency when we're outside of the optimal arousal zone. For somebody who defaults to hypoarousal, they may need more activation, more energizing, more sort of catalyzing energy than those who are in hyperarousal. So again, this is another toolbox I developed with somebody prone to going into hypoarousal. Here we're doing more intense, vigorous exercise, listening to really intense music, anything high energy, smelling bracing scents, and chewing crunchy hard food actually can be a very good activator for the hypoarousal state. Watching more action-packed movies and TV shows. So that's an example of a multisensory hypoarousal toolbox. So let's take a moment and again, screenshot this if you'd like, take a photo of it with your phone, but let's take a moment and have you just consider these prompts to help you build your own multisensory self-regulation toolboxes, okay? Think about tools that you could use that engage your physical body to dispel excess energy when you're in a panic or irritation state. And also think about tools that could increase the energy and blood flow you feel when you're in hyperarousal. What are scents that calm you down? What are scents that activate and energize you? What's a food that you eat that feels soothing and calming, but also what's a food that feels activating and engaging? What's a kind of music or song that calms you down, and what's a kind that amps you up? What's a texture or something you could touch that feels calming, and what activates you? Just take a few minutes and think about this. Feel free to take a photo of this with your phone. So when we model our own, well, when we develop and then model our own healthy mind platters and cultivate and use our own self-regulation toolboxes, we're literally modeling the kind of window of tolerance and self-regulation behavior we would like to for our kids. But let's also talk about actionable, practical skill of coaching them and teaching them how to do this in age-appropriate ways themselves and with age-appropriate interventions. To help develop a healthy mind platter for your kiddos, if they can developmentally collaborate with you, ask them some of the prompts I listed earlier, in kid-friendly language, of course. The great news here, actually, I was thinking about this when I was building this presentation. The great news here about healthy mind platters is that our kids are predisposed to unconsciously create their own healthy mind platter very organically. Like you almost never have to tell a 3 or 4-year-old to build playtime and physical activity into their day, right? That's more of an effort for us adults. I was thinking about the thing I struggle with as my daughter's parent is making sure she gets time in and downtime. She's very much a sensation seeker, an adventurer like me, and we seem to move from activity to chore in our house. So creating intentional, calm, spacious environments is something I know I struggle with, and she and I both have to work on it. So we work on developing that part of her healthy mind platter, but she's got playtime and physical activity down. Okay, so you can actually build a healthy mind platter with your kiddo, right? Depending on their age. They can collaborate with you. If they're too young to collaborate, still consider all those elements of the healthy mind platter to see what you can build into your little kid's life. Okay, so then let's see. Oh, of course, building self-regulation in our kids also revolves around these other notes I listed as well. Creating predictable, responsive, and supportive environments, providing support and empathy, offering time and space for calming down during conflicts, modeling and coaching self-regulation skills. But yes, again, to this actionable piece, we're going to build their healthy mind platters and their own self-regulation toolboxes. So let's talk about, well, actually, here's an example of a healthy mind platter for a 4-year-old. If you actually need an example of what that could look like. Focus time, reading a book, trying to recreate something with their toys, practicing coloring in the lines, time with friends or free spacious play. In other words, being a kid, connecting time, quality contact with loved ones. And I will say, I think FaceTime totally counts with the grandparents. I still think that counts. Physical time, getting wiggles out, time in, no screens, no structured activities, quiet time with them to just be, downtime, being in their cozy room, a hot bath, dim lights, sleep, just what it sounds like. So that's how you do a healthy mind platter. But let's talk about also developing those toolboxes with your kiddos. You can use those exact same prompts I gave you earlier in the presentation with age-appropriate language, of course, to help develop those self-regulation toolboxes for your kiddos. If you know your kiddo is prone to going into hyper-arousal, build that toolbox first with them, collaborate if they're able to. If not, maybe consider building it yourself and then having them engage with it. So here's some examples for a hyper aroused 4-year-old, right? You could have them tear up newspaper sheets to get some of that anger energy out of their body. You could model for them and have them hit the pillows on their bed with a foam noodle, kind of those pool noodles you would see in the pool. You could have them eat cold, creamy, sweet yogurt when they get really, really hyper aroused and angry. You could have them sing their favorite song really loudly. This actually stimulates the vagus nerve in the body. It's really good for helping calming kids down. You could do a hot bath, well, a child hot bath with lavender essential oil, or consider getting them under a weighted blanket. And then for sample self-regulation toolbox for a hypo-aroused 4-year-old, same thing is going to apply as it would with adults, right? How do you generate more energy in their body, right? So maybe turn on high energy music and grab their hands and dance around with them. Play What Time Is It, Mr. Fox, or Duck, Duck, Goose, or anything that makes them move. Give them a harmonica and have them blow a song out, or even a straw, and just the act of blowing air can be very activating. Let them crunch on crackers, popcorn, obviously not if it's still a choking hazard, or anything crunchy. So again, it's really lovely, I think, to have a conscious conversation and design this with your kids if it's age appropriate. If not, think about the things your kiddo already really likes, design the toolbox for them. Okay, so I really want to, I cannot emphasize this enough. When I give presentations like this, and I talk about healthy mind platters and self-regulation toolboxes, it's very normal and natural for people to feel shame or to feel like we're not doing enough and we're not doing it well. I will tell you this, as a therapist and as a mom, I am not doing all of these things perfectly every single day. And I choose Netflix over what I know should be a very good self-regulation tool many, many times. We're aiming for progress, not perfection. There's just no such thing as perfection in parenting. We're only aiming to do better when we know more and increasing our capacities as much as we can while dealing with the strain of daily life. So I want to offer up what I always, think of as a tiny little gift to parents with just some sort of depressuring caveats at the end. But before I do that, I do just want to kind of mention another caveat. If everything I said today, right, developing a healthy mind platter or cultivating a self-regulation toolbox, let alone teaching it to your kids, if that feels like magical thinking, if you feel like there is no way on earth you could possibly exist within a window of tolerance for the majority of time, I want to say there are times where tools like this just aren't enough. And some of the times when it's not enough are when our own unresolved trauma history might be coming into play, right? Our nervous systems are so deeply wired and ingrained from our own unprocessed trauma that we can't actually live in the window of tolerance easily or often. We may have an incredibly strained, triggering marriage that is preventing us from being able to stay well regulated. And there may be really nuanced variables with our kiddos, right? Undiagnosed or diagnosed neurodivergence, having colic or other variables. So I think it is really important before I move on to say, it's good to know when these tools are appropriate, and it's good to know when you need to ask for more help, right? And that's obviously where licensed mental health professionals can come in, both for kids, for parents, for families, certainly for couples who are having a really hard time. So definitely play with these tools, like develop the healthy mind platter, develop your self-regulation toolboxes for yourself and your kiddos, and just do be aware that sometimes it may not be enough to support self-regulation and getting you and your family into a window of tolerance. But again, let's talk about some depressuring parenting caveats. I wanted to share as we kind of wrap up at least the presentation portion, and then of course we'll have lots of good time for questions. This is one of the things that rocked my world in graduate school. Now I feel very passionate about telling every parent I know about the concept of the good enough parent. The concept of the good enough parent was such a contribution to the field of psychology in the 1950s by a man, a child psychologist or psychiatrist named Donald Winnicott. And it's this idea, this concept, this research-backed idea that actually striving to be a perfect parent, one who coddles and meets all of the child's needs all of the time, actually does not set them up well for the real world. There is no such thing as the perfect parent. This was a real deviation from the earlier work of Freud and Jung, who posited that everything was the parent's fault. Donald Winnicott came along and said, actually, through developmentally appropriate, age-appropriate ruptures and failures to attune with a parent, it actually sets the kid up for success in the real world, because the real world is not actually going to coddle them and make it perfect for them all the time. So he coined this concept of the good enough parent, one who tries to do their best and when they mess up, apologizes and fails their children in age appropriate ways. Like for instance, and this was an actual fight at my house last night. No, you can't watch 4 hours of screen time. And no, you cannot have ice cream before dinner, age appropriate failures, right? We're not talking about leaving a child at a train station in Kansas by themselves at age 5. That's child abuse. So I want you to remember, you are a good enough parent if you are striving to meet the needs of your kids and if you're attempting repair after rupture. So let's talk about that for a second. What do I mean by rupture? Rupture means getting it wrong in the relationship, like losing our cool, failing to attune, disagreeing, having conflict. It is absolutely inevitable that rupture is going to happen wherever there are two humans showing up really as their full selves. It's not the rupture that matters, it's the repair that counts. Do we go back to our kids and say, hey, I'm really sorry. I was super stressed out about work. It's not about you. I love you. I had some big feelings and I lost my cool. I'm so sorry, right? That kind of repair actually models for them really great relational skills and sets them up well in the real world. Another depressuring parenting caveat, if you're sitting here thinking, oh my God, I have been dysregulated for most of my kiddo's life. It's like, okay, yes, a lot of us have been, but here's the thing that you have to remember. Their brains and ours are plastic, meaning able to form new neural pathways literally up until the day we die. So even if we've created some maladaptive behaviors and beliefs in our own brains or in our kiddos' brains, there's still plenty of time and room to change. And the brain is plastic, so that change can actually take place. And the last thing I'll say, and this is really important to remember, attachment to primary attachment figures takes place over a long arc of time. If we rupture with our kids, if we get dysregulated, if we lose our cool, if we flip our lid, if we forget to pull out a tool from the toolbox or just abandon the healthy mind platter entirely, remember, you've got years and years and years to repair with these kiddos, and attachment takes place over a long arc of time. What you're doing is good enough. So please bear that in mind. So now, Brooke, I think I'd like to open it up. We're doing really well pacing on time. I'd like to open it up and see if there's any questions. I'm happy to answer anything I can. And I will also just leave you all with this little slide again at the end. If you feel like you would like more support, if you've been looking for a therapist, whether individual, a child play therapist, an adolescent therapist, marriage couple, or a couples counselor, a family therapist, my center is located in downtown Berkeley in the historic Wells Fargo building. We're right in the heart of Berkeley. We also see clients not only in person, but via telehealth all over California. We love, love, love working with parents and moms. Of the 18 clinicians there, I think most of us are moms. And so we deeply appreciate and understand the strain and the toll that moms deal with. And if there's any way we can be of support, we'd be delighted to. So with that said, I'd love to take questions.
I actually have one for you, Annie.
Sure.
How does it work when, one parent might be hypoarousal and one might be hyperarousal? Like a husband, usually, oh, it's my family. The man's, he might like shut down in like a stressful situation and like, then I'm all wound up, like how do you bring those two together in a situation, like when it's actually happening?
So I think that's more of a marriage counseling question, right? So the question is like, well, how do we come back and have contact with each other if both of us are off in our dysregulated states?
Yeah, like, or with the, your kid's dysregulated one way, everyone's dysregulated when something
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
on
It's
in the
really, really
situation.
hard. It's really
Mhm.
hard and it's really common. And so one of the things that I teach my clients and that we really put an emphasis on in couples counseling and something I try and model in my own family is timeouts until we
Mm.
can all get regulated again and come back with our brains back online. So whether that's like going and taking care of ourselves by watching 5 minutes of Netflix or like going for a quick walk around the block or holding an ice cube in the freezer. Whatever it takes to get the prefrontal cortex back online is always going to guarantee a more successful outcome. Now, the thing is, we don't want kids to feel abandoned if we walk away and tell them, go take care of yourself, right? So I would say that it's a nuanced question, right? Hopefully one parent can stick around to help the kid regulate. Then we regulate ourselves as parents, and then we can come back together. But two dysregulated individuals, whether they're both in hyperarousal, hypo, or one in hyper, one in hypo, it's not going to make for good repair ever. So I always focus on trying to get brains back online first.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Just, I don't know if the people on here were just always getting out the door is like always a high stressor time where everyone's like, in their triggered states and things like that a lot.
Yeah, it's very common. It's very common.
Yeah. Anyone else have questions? Oh, there's messages. Let's see.
Mhm.
It seems our kids' mirror neurons only mirror our angry emotions, not our calm emotions.
Oh, I mean, I can imagine it seems that way, but really think about ideally in the early stage of parenting when our kids are really upset and distressed and we're like, oh honey, it's okay, mama's here, right? Like the calmness in our body, the calmness in our voice, the slow beating of our hearts, that actually does calm them down, and that's mirror neurons at play too. And I do know for a fact, like when I'm in a much more calm, integrated state, my daughter is likewise in a more calm, integrated state. So I think anger is the more visible state for many, many people. But I would just say, just track closely when you're in a calm space and see what happens in your family.
Yeah. And calm is different than like hypo, almost when you're shutting down, just because you're like, I think that's a lot of things like I've seen at the park when a kid's having a tantrum, the parent looks calm, and then if I talk to them later, they'll be like, oh yeah, I just like I zone out, I like black out and pretend it's not happening kind of thing, right? So it's not the parent being calm, that's the parent,
Disassociating.
disassociating, which is like on the outside is calm. So I think there's a difference between calm, I just want to share with everyone, and versus disassociation, which I see a lot of parents do in like, which all happens, tantrums and this and that. They're just standing there disassociating versus like it's calm, like actually calm. They're just trying to kill the tantrum, right?
Correct. Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Celine, for your question. Did that answer it? You're welcome to go off mute. Where Celine is in the chat.
Oh, I see. I guess what I experienced is that my kids' calm mirror neurons take a bit longer to come online than the angry ones. Yes, that I definitely understand personally and professionally. Anger is a very analgesic, very activating emotion. It can be very easy to access for little kids, and calming down can take quite a bit more work for them and for us, to be honest.
Yeah. And it's almost, I feel like for especially toddlers, for those of us with toddlers, like anger comes so quickly, like milk spills, anger rises.
Yeah.
Toy can't find random lovey. Tantrum blows, anger. They just like don't know how to handle.
No, their tiny little brains are not fully formed at all.
Mhm.
Of course, like these tiny little things feel like the end of the world. So we are going to see more outbursts from them, more anger than calm states when hard things happen to them.
Yeah. What I find helpful with my toddler, I don't know if this is for Celine or anyone, is like I practice like being a toddler crying, and then my daughter has to calm me down. It sounds silly, like, but we play, and so she'll be like, "Okay, baby, like take a deep breath. Shh, do you need a kiss?" And like it's like so then when she gets upset, like, and she sees me do it, it like I've noticed it kind of like clicks in her brain, like she had to pretend with me, and now I'm doing that to her, and that like she can then calm down.
That's
And
great.
and doesn't like have a big anger emotion. And so I think for those, wanting a little bit more, who need like some tools or examples, like that's something that you can practice with your
That kind of
okay.
modeling is wonderful.
Oh, that can stop. Okay, that's good to know. That could work with 6 and a 7.5-year-old. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sometimes-
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I love that idea of, again, it's kind of like, how do most people learn best? Well, they teach it, right? So if we then put our kids into a sort of imaginary play environment where they're the ones who are having to soothe or calm down, maybe they'll start to internalize what we've said to them over time and reflect it back to us in the play. I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
And again, if you have questions and you don't feel comfortable asking them on this presentation, feel free to message me. Again, support at Evergreen Counseling will get to me. You can feel free to ask questions offline as well.
Of course. Well, I will keep this open for one more, and I'll ask one thing, Annie, or just talk about one thing, as you mentioned, that I think is a good conversation for everyone, is the connections with your kid. Like you were saying, like spending time together one-on-one, I think was one of the slides said.
Yeah.
And that, especially for those of us with multiple kids, I think is really, really important. And I just recently realized that how important that really is for each of them, because usually, one's the kid in the car where you're driving the other one to the party and dragged along, right? Or again,
Yeah.
So to have that one-on-one time with kids really also, I think, helps regulate them too, because they're like almost getting that fill of your calmness.
Attention.
Yeah, and that really, really helps them stay calm in situations, because it's almost like filling their cup, right? So when they had their cup filled, they can be calmer, and you can be calmer too, right? That's your toolkit, your meal, your healthy meal plans, or sorry, the tool was
The
it
Healthy Mind Platter.
Happy mind platter, like part of giving them a happy mind platter is giving them your attention and all that too. So just like doing those with them, I think helps fill that up.
I think that's a very common parenting strategy or suggestion for people with more than one kid, is to give them that undivided attention, to make that fairly regular. And I agree, it definitely fills the cup, and that's a huge part of the Healthy Mind Platter.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, oh, Eileen, I see you going off mute.
Hi. Hi. I was just waiting for you guys to finish your thoughts. Hi everybody. My name's Eileen. I just have like I love everything. The presentation was great. I
Eileen.
just wanted to know if you have any tools for the parents. I know we were talking a lot and kind of focusing a lot on our child, but I feel like sometimes, through this whole I only have one child, he's 15 months old.
Mhm.
I love him. But sometimes I get very emotional or triggered easily,
Yeah.
not by him, but like the environment, or like, the grandparents or my husband. And it's just I just thought if you have any kind of tips or suggestions that maybe help us as women, as new mothers, to kind of, all these hormones are going everywhere. You're kind of figuring out how to manage their emotions while kind of controlling yours. And uh, I know there was a lot of the healthy mind platter, a lot of information to
Oh.
process at this time. But, I just wanted to ask if you had anything that might be helpful for us to um, just kind of a quick tip for new mothers who might get triggered. And I sometimes might cry in front of him, and I know it's like faux pas to cry in front of them, but my emotional side gets to me. So I just kind of wanted to ask if I
There's
did
a
ask
lot.
clearly. Sorry.
It's okay. You don't have to apologize. There's a lot in what you just said. So the tips that I had for the parents were the healthy mind platter, and then developing your own self-regulation toolboxes. And so I would really, yeah, I would just encourage you to go back to those slides. I know Brooke is recording it. Brooke is going to archive it, because all of that was designed as, hopefully to set the foundation for good self-care, and then also to help you cultivate things you could do kind of in the moment. But if what you're asking for is like, okay, so I've got the concept of the healthy mind platter, and I've got the concept of the toolboxes, I just don't know what to put in my toolbox, then I can certainly provide some other ideas for you. Before I do that, what I want to do is challenge this idea that it's a faux pas to cry in front of our kids. I think we always have to be mindful about this. I think there's this real big disservice we do to children when we hide any of our feelings from them, but I think we also do them a disservice when we show our emotions in really developmentally inappropriate ways, right? So if mom and dad are screaming and throwing things at each other and talking about divorce at the top of their lungs and running out of the house, like that's not developmentally appropriate. That is going to be overwhelming. That's going to be scary to a kid. But if you cry in front of your child and you say, mommy's sad, but mommy's going to get help from my friends or from, my partner, that is actually modeling for them like the vulnerability of having feelings, expressing those feelings, and also externally resourcing to get help with the feelings. So I feel a little protective of you and of every new mom who's like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm going to cry in front of this kid and I'm not supposed to cry. It's like, it's fine. You can cry in front of them, right? And if what's true is the crying is, you can't stop the crying is persistent, it's every day, it's uncontrollable, that might be a clue or a sign where we want to get like a higher level of care, right? So that was part of my caveat in this presentation. These tools are great. The Healthy Mind Platter is great. The toolboxes can be rich and robust, but when they don't feel like it's enough, that is maybe time to get some additional help to see if anything else is going on, whether with hormones, unprocessed trauma, PPD, PPA, etc. But I wonder if that was helpful, Eileen, and if that answered your question a little bit more.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this has been a journey for me. I did get counseling
Good.
after I gave birth and everything. And it's all good, but I feel like sometimes my husband tells me like, don't cry in front of him. And I'm like, but I can't stop. It's like it's just something that happens. Like if he fell and then I felt like it was my fault, and and so I started crying and all that stuff. So but yeah, but this is very helpful. Thank you so much.
There's literally no other transformation we could take in our lifetimes, I think, aside from death, that will change our brains and change our psychology and our psyche as much as parenthood, right? And very and I want to be very mindful. We may have people who are parents on the call who didn't biologically bear or birth their kiddos. I still think that the act of becoming a parent, whether or not you bore the child, changes our brain structure in phenomenal ways. So when you use the word like I'm on this journey, it is a journey. I only now feel more like myself as my daughter is about to turn 5 than versus the first couple of years. So I hope you can have a lot of grace and compassion with yourself, because it is a journey that is unlike any other that we take in this human lifetime.
Yeah. Annie, one thing, do you
Thank
mind
you.
if I just add to help Eileen, if that's okay, as
Sure, of
being,
course.
having a boy, I think you said, Eileen, you have, it's very
Yes.
important actually to cry in front of boys, or have your husband, not like saying make yourselves cry, but especially boys are getting this pressure. And there's a really great movie called The Mask You Live In, a documentary, if anyone's seen it, about how boys are growing up right now, and why boys tend to be more the ones who shoot up schools and, are depressed and don't know how to, they've never learned to process emotions, and that's why women end up being the caretakers all the time and absent. So anyways, but for boys to see crying and know that they can themselves cry as well, I think is really powerful. Like they can see you, and that, they know it's okay to do it too. And when it's okay to do it, I'm in a group about like boy moms actually. And so we talk a lot about how we don't want our boys to like live in this world where they have to always bottle their feelings. We want them to, because you can't feel happiness. It's like I'm not the professional, but like, isn't it like if you can't feel sadness, you can't truly feel happiness, right? Or something.
I think what it is when we limit affect range to only feeling a few emotions, we limit the wider range of affect that we can feel. And the goal isn't to only play a couple notes on the keyboard of life. The goal is to play every single key to create the richest piece of music possible. So having the capacity to feel the quote unquote hard emotions as well as the good increases our humanity, increases our presence and connection to life. And so, yes, that's deeply important. And Nadia, I see your question. It was The Mask You Live In is the name of the documentary. It's quite good.
I am putting it into a chat. But yeah, I guess the point for you, Eileen, as a boy mom, I would just encourage you to not definitely, but like just know that like we're helping our sons experience emotions when we're crying more, so that they know it's okay. Sorry, my boy mom rant there.
Thank you. No, it's very helpful, and I see it. Like I see like when he sees me cry, he kind of just looks at me and like pats me on the back, and I'm just like, how do you know?
Yeah, it's him
because
teaching empathy. Like
so smart.
it's empathy, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a good exercise you're giving him with like this empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for Celine for sharing. She says, one boy, one girl, it's hard to get, it took a while to get comfortable, but it makes them feel free and express their emotions. And Celine, I don't know if you want to go off mute, but I don't know if you feel a difference sometimes with boys versus girls too, like being calm, like the expectation to be calm for those boys that, our partners, if we have a male partner growing up, it's like be stoic, right? They have to like not show anything. That's their calm. And then like girls, it's usually a bit more like, you're softer with the girl. So there's something about like what calm looks like for each kid too, I think is something interesting.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. I definitely try to counteract those impulses to react differently to my kids and to display emotion differently. But yeah, there's so many social pressures to treat them differently. But yeah, I try really hard to undo a lot of that.
That's amazing. You guys are all such great moms. I think we have all women here. It seems as if, I can't confirm, but everyone's doing such an amazing job just to even be on this webinar. Thank you everyone on the webinar for taking your time just to even learn this, to make a better world for all of our children. And thank you, Annie, for dedicating your time and sharing your knowledge with us. And if anyone needs therapy and help, Annie is incredible. I went through, Aileen was saying her journey, like, I was really depressed and things like that. And so that's how I got connected with Annie, frankly. And, knowing when you need medicine is so important for everyone. Don't feel ashamed. I'm on antidepressants. I couldn't stop crying all the time this summer. and just knowing to take care of yourselves, and that helps you with your kids too. So thank you, Annie, for your time and your energy here today.
It's my pleasure. There's nothing I care more about than parental mental health, because it does have such a big impact on the well-being of the next generation in the world as a whole. So thank you so much for having me.
Of course. All right, everyone, have a wonderful Friday, a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lauren.
Bye.
Bye.